This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN'S NBA Team Podcast. We had a little bit of stop and start, but now we're going on to the Western Conference Playoff Preview. I cannot wait to talk about how all these matchups are going to influence the fact that the Warriors are still going to win the Western Conference. I am joined by Adam Murray.
Yeah, that's the thing at the beginning of the season. Even now, everybody's sort of relegated to the fact that, yeah, the Warriors are going to win. We accept it.
I'm being semi-sarcastic, though. I mean, we could just go ahead and just jump right in with the Warriors. They're going to be playing the LA Clippers. They don't even have to leave Cali this time in their first-round matchup. But there is some symmetry here. Remember the fact that they played the Clippers 7 games. Now, this was the Doc River Clippers team with Lob City with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, and they went 7 games with the Warriors, and that was the series that convinced Joe Lacob to fire Mark Jackson, and they hired Steve Kerr, which kickstarted all of that. So it's sort of a full circle thing. Am I right?
Yeah, but the thing with the Clippers, we'll say this before they get swept. The thing about
Sweeped?
They'll be swept.
I didn't know you were European. I always knew you liked those Euro guys. Now the mask has come off.
Yes.
So how are they going to sweep the
They will be swept.
Clippers?
The thing with the Clippers is they traded their superstars twice in 2 years. They got rid of Jordan halfway through the season. They got rid of Tobias Harris. So this is just a team of no names, overachieving 6th and 7th men. Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams coming off the bench. This is the strongest bench in the league. Here's
the thing. Well, I can make an argument between them and Brooklyn, but the thing about the Clippers is this. What surprised me about the Tobias Harris deal, now I can understand that some people felt like they took sort of an upgrade when they did that, but by losing Tobias Harris, who was like scratching the surface of being an all-star, you were trying to build this like consensus of like, oh, this is a team. Where there's no CP3, there's no DeAndre Jordan that revolves everything around him. We need to kind of work this all together, and if we can stay healthy for the most part, we can make this work. And I feel like, and balance is the other word I think about when I see the LA Clippers. Good offense, good defense, the numbers show that. And then they trade Tobias, and you're thinking, all right, are you just going to like upend this whole thing? And not only that, remember they let Boban go, they let Avery Bradley go, they bought out Marcin Gortat. So you're thinking to yourself, all right, why are they had this delicate balance with this team, and you just get rid of Tobias. But they still were able to make it work thanks to Danilo Gallinari and Montrezl Harrell. They got Landry Shamet in the Harris deal, and Shamet's been a good backup point guard behind who would you say is the starting point guard? Patrick Beverley or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander?
I'd say Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, and JaMychal Green has given him some decent minutes. Zubac, I'm gonna tell you, I think the Lakers screwed up there because they dumped Zubac in order to get who was that guy? Mike Muscala, that was a screw up. Zubac has been very good in the 26 or so games that he's played. Now we're throwing these rose petals at accomplishments of the LA Clippers this season because they did have a shockingly good year, but they're playing the Warriors.
They had a shockingly good year in the West, but they're still going to lose by 20 every game, and it's not going to be even close.
What about Curry's foot injury? Do you think he'll sit?
He could.
Do you think it matters?
No, it doesn't, because as long as you have Durant and as long as you have Klay Thompson, as long as you have
Boogie, Draymond
Green, it doesn't matter who the point guard is.
Do you worry about Ron? Let's just get it quick out of the way for the Warriors because we're going to have a lot of time to talk about them and sort of some of their faults that I've noticed throughout the regular season, and whether it be boredom or whether there's like legitimate, devaluation and then other things. But we can kind of get to that big stuff with the Warriors as we go along because I don't think this obviously is not the end for them. But Andre Iguodala, are we near the end now? Or do you think he was holding out?
He's declining.
But do you think he was holding out just a little bit?
His minutes.
Andrew Bogut, do you think we'll see him a little bit trying to play defense on Montrezl Harrell, who has been a fantastic center for the Clippers?
He'll try. The thing is, they don't have a bench. They need something, anything.
I think Boogie would actually be a good matchup for Harrell because it's like body to body, and he can sort of be kind of that pest on defense. And offensively, I mean, Cousins still has the goods. He can still get some pretty easy buckets, and Harrell takes pride on defense. When he gets scored on, he gets frustrated. He's an emotional player.
This is not, we're talking about this as like it's going to be a competitive matchup.
Well, Lou Williams is better than Jonas Jerebko and Quinn Cook.
But when they're both in when Golden State's up 35 in the third quarter and they're just sort of salting down the time, it doesn't matter.
Do you worry about the lack of the bench for the Warriors?
In round one, no.
Who guards Kevin Durant? Gallinari?
Nobody can. You're not going to have Gallinari doing it. He's just going to – you're going to have to double up on him every time.
Well, with that foot injury, Patrick Beverley, that's like a shark to blood. Yeah, I mean, you know what he's going to do. He's going to try to pester him. Is that a word, pester? Is that my turn to fuck up a word? No, I'll say actually 5 games. I think the Clippers can get 1 in L.A. Right. I'll just say 5. Let's just move on to the Denver Nuggets and the San Antonio Spurs.
Okay, I'm going to start this, and then you tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay.
Denver in 7.
Well, I do think it's going 7. I mean, Popovich's teams never go down easy. Now, I know they got swept by the Warriors, and then they lost in 5, but that was a Kawhi-less team.
I wouldn't even be surprised to say Spurs in 7. Because
I agree with you, Ed. I think that the Nuggets have a legit shot here of not getting out of the first round.
As much as we love Denver, only one person on this team has experience, and that's Millsap. And these guys didn't even make the playoffs last year, and years before they were also terrible. So none of these kids know what to do.
For the idiot's guide to the NBA postseason, because let me tell you, no one sat on pins and needles or stood on pins. Do you sit on pins and needles or you stand on them? Which one? What's the phrase?
Just on pins and needles.
You're just on them. Okay. No one was terribly excited watching the Denver Nuggets all year. Not necessarily trying to slam their style of play. They're a really good team to watch. But what makes the Denver Nuggets good?
Jokic.
Okay, but there's more there. There's got to be something like field goal percentage, maybe like a sneaky defense. Like, is there something there that the Nuggets have that some teams just don't have?
Just a sneaky anybody, any game can step up.
Good defenders like Gary Harris, Paul Millsap. Malik Beasley was a shockingly good bench player. Monte Morris was a shockingly good backup point guard. A little bit of overachieving, you would say, kind of a little bit of a Atlanta Hawks, Budenholzer vibe.
It's just this was what we were expecting to take the next step. Well, I don't think anybody expected them to be the number 2 seed, but they definitely have the talent there, and they built. They didn't make foolish trades. They didn't take on foolish contracts. They built their team from within, and it's a good for them.
Yeah. Now the scoring margin is only +4, meaning like they don't blow out teams. They sort of just kind of distance themselves, as we get to kind of the critical point of the game. The problem here is like that's where the Spurs thrive. You don't want to keep a game close against the Spurs.
And the Spurs don't. It's going to be a close, tough matchup altogether. And
I'll say this. I know people kind of crap on him, especially with the fact that the Raptors have had a really good year with Kawhi in his place, but DeMar DeRozan had a very good year with the Spurs.
DeRozan had a good year. Aldridge was good. It was just we had even said like they might not make the playoffs just because of all the talent that was rising. Who would have known, certain teams like Minnesota would fall back to earth so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But
Rudy Gay has been clutch. Patty Mills is sort of like almost to the point where he's devolved to average. I'll tell you a guy who's sneaky good when I was doing research. Derek White is really good. Have you watched him?
Yeah, he's been
He averages about 26 minutes a game. He's like a tall. I know he was like a JUCO guy who played 1 year at Colorado, so not a lot of people saw him. But like he's like a rangy guard, kind of like almost to the vein of what DeJounte Murray was going to do for him before he tore his ACL. But like he can block shots, he can steal the ball, like he can really give guards problems. I got a feeling that you'll see a lot of matchups between Derek White and Jamal Murray. That's my guess.
Yep.
I mean, Bryn Forbes, they're not a great three-point shooting team. They're good in terms of field goal percentage from 3 for the Spurs, but they they're taking them is just not their game. That's not what they do. So like you got Bryn Forbes, but after that, DeRozan, he's a mid-range. He loves it at the elbow. So does Aldridge. We've seen, I will say this for Aldridge though, we've seen some individual performances this year. Like there was one, I believe, where he scored 58. Like he's had some real wild performances this year as the leader of the team.
He has, and the thing is just they know pop ball.
Yep, they do. They're all sort of, it's a little militaristic, and it works in their favor. You want that. With Mike Malone, I don't know if he has necessarily a style. They definitely had a style a couple years ago where they were just a really good offensive team and they were terrible on defense. They sort of brought their offense down just a little bit to complement their defense, and it worked in their favor. Jokic is going to be a really tough matchup for Aldridge because Aldridge defensively does have issues.
He does. This will be a tough. There'll be a tough out for each. I think San Antonio might steal a few early, and then Denver might find their footing halfway through. Because again, one thing you can't teach is experience, but nobody in Denver has it.
Do you think Isaiah Thomas can be a difference maker here?
Unfortunately, no. He just has. He's just out of the rotation.
Yeah, but then in the playoffs, you never know. What if Monte Morris gets hurt, or if he's ineffective against the, Patty Mills? Like, things happen.
They might throw him a bone at the end, saying, "Please, can you come in and provide a spark?" And that might change things. But man, just going from top 5 MVP voting to have that injury, and then that injury just essentially killing him.
I know it's hard to really, and you don't want to slam Thomas. He did the most he could when he was in Boston, and then the injury there, and then the Cleveland trade, and then the Laker trade, and it was just all downhill for there. The problem with the Nuggets is obviously that's one where you spoke about inexperience being the key factor in the Eastern Conference playoffs throughout. This is one where when you look at the Nuggets, that is the number one thing. Like that's what you're staring down. Will inexperience kill them?
That's why I said I think Denver could pull it off in the 7th to be at Denver, so I think that might be the deciding factor.
I don't know. They had home court against the Warriors. Now listen, this is a totally different team. But when George Karl was there, and they had guys like I forget, but they basically lost the Warriors in 6 games because they lost the first game. But let's move on to the Blazers and the Thunder. That's going to actually be interesting.
No, let's move on to a commercial break.
Oh no.
That's right. Playoff time. We got ads. Hit the music.
All right, here. I'll just shut up while you do it.
You see, doing live reads, which you've never done, you just read it. They give you the promo copy, you talk about it, you go back and forth, you mention things like the pop feed is coming up. You mention things like Stephen Kelly on Songs with Friends. They're joined by Jason Sherman. They talk about Bush, not the Beans, not the president, the band.
I like Bush.
The band, right?
Yeah, the band's okay.
Okay.
The band's okay.
The
band's okay.
Greg and Nick are also here with Longbook Hunters edition of the Hard Traveling Fanboys.
Yeah, those are good people.
They're exploring Shazam with Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, I mean, Shazam's in. Shazam's in because that's actually a DC movie that people actually like. It's a rare bird.
Yep, Shazam, the Monster Society of Evil, and check out their 3rd anniversary special with the Essential Jim Ross.
Oh, you mean All Elite Wrestling's Jim Ross?
Andrew and Adam, NBA team. They're not terrible.
Yeah, is this like a Being John Malkovich thing where we're plugging the show that we're doing?
The Marvel Age crew are also here and moving into the first half of 1970. And Jenny and Tim welcome Jen Butler to the hot and high seat for this month's Talkin' Pop.
It's Glenn Butler. You said Jen Butler.
Jenny and Tim welcome Jen Butler. Combination of both. Why not?
Correct.
Oh, and Geek and Sassy wouldn't let award season come to an end without the 2nd annual Sassies. Check out what Jenny and Miranda's fans had to say about officially put a bow on 2018. That's right, we put a bow on 2018 in the middle of April.
I did a show with Jen and Miranda, and they were very nice co-host guests to have when I was on one of Jason Sherman's shows. So
they're two people. Wonderful ladies. All those shows are good, except for the NBA team.
Yeah, we're terrible. We're the redheaded stepchildren of the PB. I think we're the oldest one though, unless Top Beer is going on. Yeah, I mean, Greg and Nick have been going forever with hard traveling fanboys. But Longbook Hunters has been going a little shorter than that. But no, yeah, a lot of Place to Be Nation, PTBN Pop. Check it out. All right, Adam, before I was rudely interrupted by some like voice of God type of commercial ad, was that you?
It could be anybody.
It could have been anybody. It could have been Ganon from Zelda. Did Ganon ever talk? I don't think he talked.
Anybody from Zelda ever talk?
Well, that's a good point. Well, we're getting off track. Let's talk about the Blazers and the Thunder. I don't know how to transition that with video games, but we could talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Portland Trail Blazers. I'll say this about the Thunder. They're much better offensively than I thought they were when I was looking at their statistics. Like, that's a team with Paul George was second in the league in scoring. Did you know that?
Yeah, and then the problem is after him, nobody did anything. It was Russell Westbrook.
Mr. Triple-Double was there, Russell Westbrook.
After him, if he was second, obviously I don't need to mention first.
The third leading scorer was Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing if the backup to Russell, who acts like Russell, is sort of not spreading the ball around for everybody.
Here's the thing: they're talented. But depth is definitely an issue for them. Obviously, not having Andre Robertson for the year because of that knee problem, that was a big problem. They didn't really get the value out of Nerlens Noel that they were hoping for. Hamidou Diallo was good for them, but he did suffer that injury. And then Markieff Morris. I mean, you could tell their depth was an issue because they signed Markieff Morris at the very end of the year to try to like fortify their bench, and they had to play Jeremy Grant almost at a starter level. He starts almost all the games because they needed something. They needed that punch out of the starting lineup so that they could sort of get ahead of teams. Portland, the thing is, like, I know that some people don't like to talk about the season to season or postseason to postseason scenarios when it comes to franchises, but with Portland, Adam, I have to. Because there's a point with the Blazers where you kind of like the Raptors in the East where you start to think, all right, is this in your head now? Is this a situation where no matter how good you are, you're going to just suck in the playoffs because you just don't know how to win?
I just don't. This is a tough one to pick because these teams seem to be equal. Like
Joseph Nurkic for the Blazers was a killer.
But then they picked up Cantor, so they didn't really lose too much.
That's can't play Cantor. If you do pick and roll with Russ, now you're in trouble. With Cantor,
on offense,
they're very good offensively. The Blazers are.
The thing with Cantor is, he had to guard Adams in practice, so he knows the game. He knows Adams' tendency, so it's not.
The Blazers are hoping that you're right about that. Damian Lillard, would you? I mean, I wouldn't call it like a shutdown late in the year because they were still playing to get that, third or fourth spot because there was a little bit of talk about the lobbying so that they could get the best opponent for them and the Rockets and so that you could avoid this team and that team. At the end of the day, the Portland Trail Blazers wound up with the 3 seed.
Yep.
Thanks to landmark performances from, of all people, Anthony Simons and Skal Labissiere. You talk about weird. But, their bench is probably better than Oklahoma City's. Would you agree?
I would agree, but benches get shorter, and that's sort of the problem is, and who do you want? Do you want Lillard and McCollum, or do you want George and Russell?
What's the status on C.J. McCollum?
I believe healthy.
He is. I mean, because there was a lot of concern with his injuries. Obviously with Nurkic, that's a broken ankle. He's done. Was it a broken leg?
It was ugly.
Was it a Hayward situation, or was it like that Auburn gymnast situation?
I have not seen the Auburn gymnast. I do not want to see the Auburn gymnast. Yeah, I once I read that, I'm like, you know what? I don't need to see this. I'm good.
But yeah, so McCollum and Lillard, that's obviously your bread and butter. They brought in Rodney Hood off the trade deadline. He's been okay, but he doesn't start. He's more of like a spark plug. Evan Turner is just like he can rebound.
He is who he is.
But I mean, as a scorer, he's done. Zach Collins, you were always hoping for more. Al-Farouq Amino's okay. Mo Harkless is just okay. It's a solid bench, but you worry about the starters against Oklahoma City starters, of course, because Oklahoma City packs punch on that starting lineup with George, Westbrook, Adams, Schroeder. Not Schroeder necessarily because he comes off the bench, but that's a starting lineup that can really wreck you if you're not careful.
So who do you take?
Oklahoma City in 6.
I don't have that as well.
I don't have confidence in the Blazers.
I hate to agree with you, but I have to go with Oklahoma City.
To agree. But let me say this about the Thunder. They've gotten their licks, the post-Durant Thunder. They played the Rockets, lost in 5. They played the Jazz, lost in 6. Now, because of other reasons, I think we're kind of glad we're not watching the Thunder play the Jazz. Would you agree?
Agreed.
But now the Blazers, maybe it's almost to a point of it's like, okay, can you take care of business with these guys? You couldn't beat the Rockets, you couldn't beat the Jazz. Can you beat these guys? My intuition is yes, they can. They just need to be ready.
Easy.
It won't be. It's going to be tough, and I think the next one's tough, and that's the Rockets and the Jazz. That's the 4-5. The Rockets are. When you look at that on paper, they played last year. And the Rockets beat them in the second round. It was the first time that Chris Paul got past the second round. And defensively last year, the Jazz did a good job on Harden, but a little different. Remember in that one, Dante Exum played for the Jazz and Ricky Rubio was out. This year it's on the flip side. Exum's out, but Rubio's in. Harden is on, averaged 36 points a game. He was just at a god level as a scorer. Chris Paul has slipped a little bit. No Trevor Ariza. So obviously, long story short, a little bit of a different take with these two teams, but some people are predicting the same result, like Rockets in 5. But I don't want to just completely just slam the Jazz and say, oh, I don't think they'll get past it.
Here's the problem: the Rockets are all in.
Okay.
They traded for Chris Paul last year, and it's going to be an ugly contract in a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
They got Kenneth Faried they picked up, who's played well for them. They picked up Austin Rivers. They've done everything they can to try to match up.
Yes.
They haven't just, they've gone out, they've been very aggressive.
They have a good Swiss Army knife in PJ Tucker.
I was just going to mention him as well. And Utah just sort of stayed pat, and I want Utah to win.
There is a couple of things that are a tad different from Utah, but they're not, like you said, they're not vast. Adding Kyle Korver as a three-point shooter was good for them because their three-point shooting always needed help. And now they got a little bit of a weapon, even though he's 38 years old. No Exum, like I mentioned, so you're going to have to see a little bit of Rahul Neto? Rahul? Something like that. But, the Jazz, they have their own Swiss Army knife in Joe Jingles, so they can just have him play that point forward thing, which he does a lot. He likes to dish out assists. Also Grayson Allen, but I don't necessarily think that means we're going to see a lot of him. It's the Donovan Mitchell show at the guard spot for the most part.
Basically.
And that's not a bad thing. The one thing that's always been critical for Mitchell is that he's not really an assist guy. He always defers to, Rubio and Joe Ingles to do that, to the point where some people think that Mitchell's a ball hog. Would you agree?
Yeah, he kind of is, but with Rubio, it doesn't matter, because Rubio's just there to be a facilitator and an assist man. He's not there to steal the ball from him.
Is he like a Harden Jr.?
Mitchell?
Yeah.
He's like Harden light, like he was in Oklahoma City.
He's more athletic than Harden. Now, I'm not saying that Harden's a slob. Harden's very athletic, too, but Mitchell's all-time athletic.
Harden's going to be run down through this, and he's going to have nothing left after this matchup because he's going to be playing 46 minutes.
Well, Utah has an elite defense. So that's one part that you have to worry about. Obviously, with Gobert, offensively, Gobert's really picked up. He averaged almost 16 points a game. So you wonder if Capella can really do the damage on Gobert and vice versa the other way. That's another thing. Then who guards Eric Gordon? Ingles, Rubio, that's a concern.
That's the thing is just they're just going to start shooting threes, and it's as much as it's just a bad matchup for Houston, it's a bad matchup for Utah, I just don't see Houston losing.
And also, Houston gets the free throw line so much with Harden and Paul, just by themselves. That's another thing where you just got to keep an eye out. If they can slow, some people are suggesting that Utah speeded up on them. I think the opposite. I think they need to slow Rockets down. I know the Rockets defensively are not bad. They're still pretty good. I wouldn't call them as good as they were last year when they had Ariza and Tucker at the 3 and the 2 and the 3, sort of shutting down wing guys for the other team. But they're still a good defense. But I don't know if I don't think they can handle a slowdown game. I don't think the Rockets can do that.
No. And so how many Rockets and how many?
Rockets in 6.
Rockets in 6.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, so let's just kind of move on from there. Like, just very, very quickly, like Golden State, we said they would win. They would play the winner of this, so we would say they play Houston, correct?
Denver did rig this. They tried some chicanery. So Portland, they lost to Portland, so Portland could jump. Could jump them. So, and it worked. So,
but weren't they at risk of losing the 2 seed, and they had to come back and win their last game?
They played the cards and they won.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a rough road for Houston, but. 5 or 6 for Houston, I think.
Yeah, that Denver, Oklahoma City, Portland, San Antonio, Bermuda triangle is kind of interesting because one of them's got to go to the Western Conference Finals.
It's interesting, but at the same time, you all avoid Golden State in round 2.
I know. I mean, we hate to be terribly like apocalyptic about it, but like it really always comes down to the Warriors. Now, if the Warriors lose, okay, now we're talking. You know, just like in the East altogether, like there is no LeBron. So it is kind of fascinating in the East, a little more compared to the West. But the West has some decent storylines. I'll say this, the first round storylines in the West are probably more fascinating than the East. Once we get to the second round, then the East starts to really pick up some steam.
Final thoughts?
I mean, I hate to keep belaboring the point, but no LeBron. There's no LeBron in the postseason, so like, who's gonna be the alpha male? I mean, we're used to the Warriors, so we know they're gonna be in there. But who's the next one? Who's the team that's gonna really be the lightning rod of the whole thing?
Alrighty.
All right. On behalf of Adam Murray, this is Andrew Riche. Enjoy the playoffs, guys.
Check out the East Conference podcast episode.
That one, yeah.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Place to Be Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have over 24 podcasts available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We now offer them to you on 2 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we dive into topics running the gamut from today's WWE to the glory days of yesteryear and the ins and outs of the territory days. In addition to our full-length shows, we also deliver to you special pod blasts on topics old and new.
The Place to Be Nation Pop feed is a veritable treasure trove of great content, offering tremendous shows covering the land of movies, television, life, comics, and sports, brought to you by the most knowledgeable and insightful folks in the podcast world.
You can find all these great shows, plus archives of our past podcasts from over the past 8 years as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects, and much more. Be sure to support our site by using www.PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping. We want to thank our friends at Boneheads, Wingbar, ProWrestlingOnly.com, and TheHistoryOfWrestling.com as well. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop